In a laboratory at the University of Richmond, something extraordinary was happening that sounds like it came straight out of a children's cartoon. Scientists were teaching rats to drive tiny cars, and the results were far more fascinating than anyone could have imagined. This wasn't just another quirky science experiment destined for viral fame on social media. It was a groundbreaking study that would challenge our understanding of animal intelligence, learning capacity, and the very nature of joy itself. The story begins with Dr. Kelly Lambert, a neuroscientist who had spent years studying the intricate workings of the mammalian brain. Throughout her career, she had observed countless laboratory rats navigating mazes, pressing levers, and solving puzzles. But Dr. Lambert had a wild idea that would push the boundaries of what anyone thought possible for these small rodents. She wanted to understand how learning complex tasks affects the brain, particularly in areas related to stress and cognitive function. But instead of using traditional maze tests or simple behavioral tasks, she decided to try something completely unprecedented in the world of neuroscience: teaching rats to operate miniature vehicles. The concept seemed almost absurd at first. Driving requires a complex combination of spatial awareness, motor coordination, planning, and real-time decision-making. These are cognitive abilities that many people assumed were uniquely human, or at least limited to our closest primate relatives. The idea that a rat, with its tiny brain weighing less than 2 grams, could master the art of vehicular navigation seemed like science fiction. But Dr. Lambert was undeterred by skepticism. She understood that rats are remarkably intelligent creatures, capable of complex social behaviors, problem solving, and emotional responses. They can learn their names, come when called, and even show empathy toward their fellow rats. If they could master these sophisticated behaviors, perhaps driving wasn't so far-fetched after all. The journey to create the first rat-operated vehicle was filled with challenges and innovations. Dr. Lambert and her team spent countless hours in the workshop experimenting with different designs and materials. They needed to create something that was safe for the rats, responsive to their movements, and sophisticated enough to provide meaningful data about learning and cognition. The cars themselves were quite ingenious pieces of engineering, despite their simple appearance. Built from clear plastic containers about the size of a cereal bowl, they were equipped with 3 copper bars that served as a steering mechanism. The design was elegant in its simplicity. When a rat touched the left bar with its paws, an electrical circuit would complete, causing the car to turn left. Touch the right bar, and the vehicle would pivot right. The center bar controlled forward movement. The cars were powered by small motors and moved at a gentle pace that wouldn't frighten or overwhelm their tiny drivers. The research team spent months perfecting the design, ensuring that the cars were safe, responsive, and appropriately sized for rat anatomy and behavior. They tested different materials, adjusted the sensitivity of the controls, and even experimented with various car shapes to find what worked best. The copper bars had to be positioned at just the right height and distance for rat paws to reach comfortably. The motor speed needed to be calibrated to provide smooth movement without being too fast or jerky. Early prototypes revealed numerous design challenges. Some cars were too sensitive, lurching into motion at the slightest touch. Others were too sluggish, requiring the rats to press hard on the controls. The team went through dozens of iterations, each one teaching them something new about rat behavior and preferences. They discovered that rats preferred cars with slightly textured surfaces that provided better grip for their claws. The clear plastic walls needed to be high enough to provide security, but low enough that the rats didn't feel trapped. Even the color of the copper bars mattered. Rats seemed to respond better to certain metallic finishes than others. At first, the researchers weren't sure if this experiment would work at all. The initial training sessions were filled with uncertainty and careful observation. Would the rats understand the connection between touching the bars and the car's movement? Would they be able to coordinate their actions to navigate toward a goal? Or would they simply be confused and stressed by this strange new environment? The early results were promising but modest. The first rats to attempt driving showed curiosity about their vehicles, but little understanding of how to control them. They would climb into the cars, explore the copper bars with their whiskers and paws, and seem puzzled when the vehicle lurched into motion. Some rats initially appeared startled by the movement and would jump out of the car immediately. Dr. Lambert and her team documented every moment of these early sessions. They noticed that different rats had varying levels of initial comfort with the vehicles. Some bold individuals immediately began exploring all aspects of their cars, while more cautious rats took several sessions just to feel comfortable sitting inside the stationary vehicle. The researchers developed a careful protocol for introducing rats to their cars. First, they would allow the animals to explore the stationary vehicles, rewarding them with treats for simply approaching or climbing inside. This helped establish positive associations with the cars before any movement was involved. Next, they would manually move the cars very slowly while the rats were inside, helping them get accustomed to the sensation of motion. Only after rats seemed comfortable with passive movement would they begin training them to operate the controls themselves. However, what happened next surprised everyone involved in the study. With patient training and positive reinforcement, the rats not only learned to drive, but they learned remarkably quickly. Within just a few training sessions, these small rodents were navigating their tiny vehicles with purpose and precision that amazed their human observers. The training process itself was carefully structured and methodical. Researchers began by simply rewarding rats for approaching the cars, then for climbing inside, then for touching the control bars. Gradually, they introduced the concept of directional movement, rewarding rats for successful navigation toward a target. The learning curve was steep but consistent across different individual rats. The breakthrough moment came when researchers realized they needed to think like rats to design effective training protocols. Instead of trying to teach human-style driving concepts, they focused on natural rat behaviors and motivations. Rats are naturally goal-oriented creatures who love to explore and forage. By placing attractive food rewards at various locations around the driving course, they could tap into these innate drives. The rats would climb into their cars with growing confidence, grip the copper bars with their tiny pink paws, and drive toward their destination, usually a platform where a delicious treat was waiting. But as the study progressed, something even more remarkable became apparent. The rats weren't just mechanically performing the task for their food rewards. They seemed to genuinely enjoy the driving experience itself. This observation led to one of the most significant discoveries of the entire study. The scientists noticed something unexpected in the rats' behavior and body language. The animals appeared to take pleasure in the act of driving, displaying what could only be described as enthusiasm for their vehicular adventures. They would eagerly approach their cars at the beginning of each session, sometimes even before the researchers had set up the reward targets. Some rats developed what could only be called driving rituals. They would circle their cars before climbing in, almost like a pilot doing a pre-flight inspection. Others would position themselves in a specific way before beginning to drive, suggesting they had developed personal techniques for optimal control. The researchers began to notice subtle but consistent changes in rat behavior that suggested genuine engagement with the driving task. Rats would often vocalize softly while driving, producing the quiet chirping sounds that indicate contentment in rodents. Their body posture while driving was relaxed and confident, very different from the tense, alert posture they displayed when stressed or frightened. To measure this scientifically and move beyond subjective observations, the researchers analyzed the rats' stress hormones through careful biological sampling. What they found was remarkable and challenged many existing assumptions about animal emotional states. The driving rats had significantly lower levels of corticosterone, the primary stress hormone in rodents, compared to rats who were simply passengers in moving vehicles or those who remained in standard laboratory conditions. Even more fascinating, the rats who learned to drive showed increased levels of DHEA, a hormone associated with feelings of well-being and relaxation in both humans and animals. This hormonal profile suggested that the rats were not just tolerating the driving experience, but were actually finding it pleasurable and stress-reducing. The act of having control over their movement and environment appeared to provide genuine psychological benefits. The hormone studies revealed additional interesting patterns. Rats showed the most positive hormonal profiles not just after successful driving sessions, but even in anticipation of driving. When researchers brought rats to the laboratory for driving sessions, their DHEA levels would begin to rise before they even saw their cars, suggesting they had formed positive associations with the entire experience. This discovery challenged many assumptions about animal cognition and advanced neuroscience courses. Students who might struggle with abstract concepts about neural plasticity and learning theory find these ideas much more accessible when illustrated through videos of rats mastering vehicular navigation. The research has become a gateway for many students to develop deeper interests in behavioral neuroscience and animal cognition. High school science teachers have also embraced the rat driving studies as a way to engage students who might otherwise find neuroscience intimidating or boring. The whimsical nature of rats driving tiny cars captures attention, while the sophisticated scientific methodology demonstrates the rigor and creativity required for meaningful research. The research has sparked numerous follow-up studies at universities around the world. Teams in Japan have replicated the basic findings and expanded them to include more complex vehicle designs. Researchers in Germany have explored whether other rodent species can learn similar skills. A team in Australia has investigated whether the benefits of learning to drive extend to other cognitive abilities in rats. Each new study has added layers of understanding to the original findings. The Japanese research revealed that rats can learn to operate vehicles with more sophisticated control systems, including steering wheels and gear shifts. The German studies showed that mice can also learn to drive, though they require smaller vehicles and different training approaches. The Australian research demonstrated that rats who learn to drive show improved performance on other learning tasks, suggesting that the cognitive benefits generalize beyond the specific skill of vehicle operation. But beyond the serious scientific implications, there's something wonderfully whimsical and uplifting about the image of rats contentedly driving their tiny cars around a laboratory. In a world often filled with concerning news about animal testing and scientific ethics, this research represents a positive model where animals are not just subjects, but active participants in discovery. The ethical dimensions of the research have been carefully considered and widely discussed in scientific circles. Unlike many animal studies that involve stress, discomfort, or invasive procedures, the rat driving research appears to genuinely benefit its participants. The animals show clear signs of enjoyment and reduced stress, making this one of the rare studies where the research process itself improves animal welfare. This has led to broader discussions about how animal research might be redesigned to be more mutually beneficial. The rat driving studies demonstrate that meaningful scientific insights can be gained while simultaneously enriching the lives of research animals. This model is inspiring researchers in other fields to reconsider their methodologies and look for ways to make their studies more positive experiences for animal participants. The rat drivings remind us that curiosity, learning, and the joy of mastering new skills are fundamental aspects of intelligent life, whether human or rodent. They challenge us to reconsider our assumptions about animal consciousness and emotional capacity. If a rat can experience satisfaction from learning to drive, what other rich inner lives might animals possess that we've overlooked? The philosophical implications of the research extend far beyond the laboratory walls. The findings suggest that the capacity for joy, satisfaction, and intrinsic motivation may be more widespread in the animal kingdom than previously recognized. This has implications for how we think about animal rights, welfare standards, and our responsibilities toward other species. The research continues today, with new generations of rats learning to drive and scientists gaining deeper insights into the remarkable capabilities of these small but intelligent creatures. Each tiny car journey represents not just a scientific data point, but a small celebration of the universal drive to learn, explore, and find joy in unexpected places. Current studies are exploring even more complex scenarios, including rats learning to navigate traffic lights, follow GPS-like directions, and even compete in friendly racing competitions. The possibilities seem limited only by the imagination of the researchers and the remarkable adaptability of their rodent collaborators. The traffic light studies have revealed that rats can learn to respond to color-coded signals, stopping at red lights and proceeding on green. This demonstrates not only color discrimination abilities, but also impulse control. Rats can override their immediate desire to reach a reward in order to follow traffic rules. The GPS-like direction studies involve training rats to follow sequences of audio or visual cues to navigate complex routes. Preliminary results suggest that rats can interpret and follow multi-step directions, adding another layer to their demonstrated cognitive abilities. The racing competitions have provided insights into motivation and competitive behavior. When rats are given the opportunity to race against each other, some individuals show increased speed and focus, suggesting they may understand and respond to competitive situations. Researchers are also exploring the long-term effects of driving experience on rat behavior and cognition. Longitudinal studies following rats throughout their lives have revealed that early driving experience may have lasting benefits for cognitive flexibility, stress resilience, and overall well-being. Elderly rats who learn to drive in their youth show better maintenance of cognitive abilities compared to control groups. They remain more curious, more willing to explore new environments, and show less age-related decline in learning ability. This suggests that the benefits of complex skill learning may provide protection against cognitive aging. The research has also revealed interesting individual differences among rats that mirror personality variations seen in humans. Some rats are natural speed demons, always choosing the fastest route and driving with apparent urgency. Others are methodical and careful, taking time to plan their routes and execute precise maneuvers. Still others are explorers, more interested in investigating their environment than in reaching destinations quickly. These personality differences appear to be stable over time and consistent across different driving scenarios. A rat who is cautious in simple driving tasks tends to remain cautious even as the challenges become more complex. This consistency suggests that driving behavior may reflect deeper personality traits rather than just learned responses to specific situations. The team has also investigated whether rats can learn to drive different types of vehicles. After mastering their original cars, some rats have been introduced to vehicles with different control systems, sizes, and capabilities. The results show remarkable adaptability. Experienced rat drivers can quickly learn to operate new vehicles, suggesting they have developed general driving concepts rather than just specific motor responses. Some rats have learned to operate vehicles with joystick controls, touchscreen interfaces, and even voice-activated systems. The speed with which they adapt to new control methods suggests sophisticated understanding of the relationship between their actions and vehicle movement. The research has expanded to include collaborative driving scenarios, where multiple rats must work together to operate a single vehicle. These studies have revealed complex social coordination abilities as rats learn to share control responsibilities and communicate their intentions to their driving partners. In two rat driving teams, researchers have observed the emergence of driver and navigator roles, with one rat primarily controlling movement, while the other focuses on route planning and obstacle detection. The rats develop communication systems using vocalizations and body language to coordinate their actions. The collaborative driving studies have implications for understanding social cognition and cooperation in animals. They demonstrate that rats can not only learn complex individual skills, but can also coordinate those skills with others to achieve shared goals. Environmental factors have also been shown to influence driving behavior in interesting ways. Rats drive differently in bright versus dim lighting, in quiet versus noisy environments, and in familiar versus novel settings. These variations provide insights into how environmental conditions affect cognitive performance and decision-making. Temperature appears to influence driving style, with rats becoming more cautious in cooler conditions and more aggressive in warmer environments. This may reflect changes in metabolism and energy levels, or it could indicate that rats are adapting their behavior to environmental conditions in sophisticated ways. The presence of other animals, even non-driving ones, affects rat driving behavior. Rats tend to drive more cautiously when other animals are present, suggesting awareness of their social environment, even while engaged in the complex task of vehicle operation. Seasonal variations in driving behavior have also been documented. Rats show different patterns of exploration and risk-taking during different times of year, possibly reflecting evolutionary adaptations to seasonal changes in food availability and environmental conditions. The research has led to the development of increasingly sophisticated driving courses